Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Rose.
And I'm Jessica Bun Bun.
This is our Squid Game Season 2 reaction and review. For those of you who did not know, for whatever reason, Squid Game Season 2 dropped in its entirety on Netflix in the day after Christmas, and what is a real coup for them, where they're like, watch our football, then watch Squid Game the next day, give us all the money.
Absolutely. And it's been confirmed that we are going to be having season 3, and
Yeah.
it is the final season.
Okay, I'm going to just issue a take here from the start because I have been seeing your tweets, and by your, I mean the royal you, everyone that is out there.
Yeah.
Squid Game Season 2 is underrated. I have said it. Everybody else is hating on it. I did not love the first half, but I think the second half is really, really good.
Okay, I have a bit of a different take. I don't hate the second season by any means. I think there was a lot of really good stuff in it. There was a questionable end to it, and I don't mean by leaving a cliffhanger. It's more of a questionable, how did, Song get everyone to do what they did? It didn't really make a lot of sense to me. And for me, we'll get more deep into this, but there was a lot of the personal stories that I was missing from the first season that made it such a spark and made me like every single death in that first season. My heart was breaking. There was no real like diabolical game like marbles that had, oh, you pick a partner. Oh, now you have to kill your partner. It's just, there was nothing like that this season that really had that gasping moment. They had brought in some pretty good villains, Thanos. I see you out there.
Oh, I wish I didn't see him out there.
But the problem is that it felt like all the villains were all kind of the same. We had like a YouTuber, then we had a reality guy, we had an influencer, and they were all bad. We get it. YouTubers, reality stars, influencers, we all evil out here, but it was like the same job and the same sort of like lifestyle.
Yeah, I season 2 definitely has some problems, and it's hard to compare it to season 1, which I think is one of the most original masterpieces of the past 20 years in television.
It was so incredible and so groundbreaking, something that we had never seen before.
Yeah.
It, like I said, was so diabolical. That Marbles episode has stuck with all of us for years.
Yeah.
It'll stick with us forever. It was just so dark and just ripped out people's hearts. I missed that this season. That didn't happen the way that it happened for me before.
I think the really big question mark with this show, and you guys can let us know in the comments on this too, was there any way that this show would ever have matched the experience we had with season 1? I think it came into this with an impossible task. It did some things wrong, but it did some things right. And we're going to get more into it. Before we do, though, be sure to hit that subscribe button, because I know that Squid Game here is just an all-season drop at once show. But moving into the new year, there's so much exciting stuff coming, including Severance on Apple TV Plus, another huge hit. We are so excited to break down every week.
Absolutely. And we're currently covering Dexter. White Lotus is coming up. I mean, there's lots of stuff happening here at the channel. So thank you so much to everyone who has hit that subscribe button.
Yeah, thank you. We really, really appreciate
that.
Okay,
let's hear why you really liked it. Because I have seen mixed reactions. I've seen some people that really do like it, but the majority of the people, not disappointed, but it definitely can't live up to season 1. It just can't.
No.
The bar is in heaven. How do you live up to this?
I think the show gets off to a really, really slow start, because other than, occasional scenes of Sung Ji-hun and what's going on with him, a lot of other supporting characters in the first 2 episodes I just don't care about.
I love the recruiter. I'm just going to throw it out there.
The recruiter's interesting.
He's diabolical.
He also dead. He died too early. We lost a really interesting, iconic character pretty early. It dragged its feet to me until we kind of get to to episode 4, episode 5, kind of around that territory. But I think what the show does really well at this point is, I think everybody behind the scenes on Squid Game knows you can't just do this same exact thing again. And I found myself struggling with that, with red light, green light in particular, where it's just like, okay, we've seen this before. The
Yes.
format of this show makes it really, really difficult to do additional seasons. But I think at that point, they thought up something that was truly diabolical, not in the same way as the marble game, because we, like you said, I do agree
Nothing.
that we had a deeper personal connection to those characters.
Yeah.
But I think they did still come up with something that was really twisted and also feasible to an extent within this world, where they turned Squid Game into this us versus them mentality, and all really for the same purpose, for the entertainment of these rich bigwigs who like seeing, the poor be taken advantage of in this way. So it's horrifying, but in this completely different way than we even saw all the time on season 1, with how much it lingers. And then we kind of build and build and build until we have this infighting. And then in the finale, we basically turned the show into Platoon, which I did not see coming by any stretch of the imagination. It was a lot of action, but I appreciate the really big confident swing of, okay, we're not even going to bother to finish the games this time. Good luck, Netflix, trying to make a reality show out of this season.
Well, here's the thing. You hit on the biggest problem I had with this season, which was the whole idea is you have these rich people that have these games that take advantage of people who are not wealthy, who are struggling, who are in trouble, who are willing to do anything to be able to have a chance to get money, to have a better life, including ending up in this situation where they would die for it.
Yeah.
Then you have characters like Thanos, the YouTuber, the influencer, where it's like, okay, they were quite wealthy, made a lot of money, either rapping or selling whatever, and then they lost their money. And it's like, okay, we understand that. That's fine. Yeah. But they're still in there acting like, they're mugging for the camera, like they're there to get follows. They don't really feel desperate. And that was what really pulled me into these characters in season 1, where I was like, I feel their pain. I feel how desperate they are, that they're willing to do anything to be able to get money because they need it for whatever it is, debts, surgery, help, anything that they're able to do. They are in such trouble. And then you've got characters like Thanos who come out here are like, hey guys, I'm rapping, it's me, I'm here for you. Hey, all my fans. I'm just like, it didn't hit the same way because of that. He didn't feel desperate. The YouTuber didn't feel desperate. They were there obviously because they wanted money and because they had lost money, but it didn't feel the same. It felt like they were still like, okay, maybe we don't have the money, but we still have fame. I'm still like, a Spotify rapper, and I'm still a YouTuber with lots of followers. So even if I don't get this money necessarily, I'll still be able to do something to be able to get that money back. And that wasn't happening in the first season. The first season was just, my heart was breaking for every single person. So every time somebody died, I just wanted to like cry.
Okay. I will say I agree with you with a lot of that, especially in episode 3. In episode 3, I thought it was all way too much with some of those characters. For me, some of it went away in episode 4 with one very notable exception. I hate Thanos so much. I hate Thanos.
He's a great character.
Okay, he might be a great character,
but not for the show.
He's not a great character for me in general. Like, another good comparison here, since we're both gamers, we can throw this out here. This is like the bad guys of Borderlands 3, where it's just sort of like,
oh my god, I was gonna make the same comparison. I mean, Borderlands 3, spoiler alert, but the bad guys were evil influencers, bad podcasters. I was like, this is so lame.
That's the thing. It's just, if you've played this game, I'm sure you probably agree with us. It's just that
I love Borderlands.
It's just, this is just not a compelling adversary for any of us to watch. This is just not my kind of villain. And maybe it's other people kinds of villains. I'm fine with annoying characters if they are in a different sort of role, because I want an annoying character to kind of make me feel something, so that I'm questioning, okay, is it wrong that I think that they're annoying? Like, could they still bring something to the table? And, we're covering
Solo.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Like,
you love him.
I love Solo on Silo, but I also recognize that he is very annoying. But at the same time, you kind of wonder, should I trust him? Should I feel something for him? And because I feel nothing for Thanos, I was just happy he got killed, and I was just happy that I did not have to watch him in the final episode of the season.
That's the thing that season 1 also did really well, is there were characters that I think a lot of us disliked or were supposed to be like kind of the bad guys of that season.
Yeah.
But then we kind of learned some of their backstory, and then we would get conflicted about it.
Yeah.
So by the time they ended up dying, we were a little more conflicted, where it was like, yeah, he's a bad guy, but this horrible thing was happening to him back at home, and that's why he's here. And oh my goodness, now I don't dislike him as much, and now they're killing him, and now my heart is breaking. So when we get to Thanos, I'm just kind of like, they didn't give us any real backstory on him, except that he was like this reality contestant that, won a show for his rapping. He put some money into this YouTuber. He's mad about it, and he just feels entitled. And like, I'm just like, okay. And even the fact that he was allowed to keep that piece of jewelry that had all of his little special rainbow pills in there, why would that have happened? Like, at the season 1, our guys in pink, they weren't allowing anything. They would take all your personal effects. And here in season 2, it's like, oh yeah, you took our phones and you took our whatever, but you left this giant cross for this guy to have. This could be a weapon. It was huge. I was really shocked by how much our pink suited guys allowed this nonsense to go on. They let them just like carry on like crazy, yelling and screaming, having everybody like trying to pump everybody up. I'm really surprised that they didn't just cut it out to be like, guys, no.
Yeah, I tried to sit back and sort of think about it, and I was just sort of thinking, did they know that Thanos is going to be a problem? So were they letting him purposely instigate people? But at the same time, I don't think that's any justification for letting him keep that necklace. It's like there's no real point to him keeping the necklace at this point.
Sung was also allowed to just go off and like rally everybody and was like big and loud about like, okay, everybody, we got to do this and that, whatever. And I am shocked that they didn't shut it down for a while. They let that go on and on and on before they were like, okay, everybody, we're not allowing that to happen again. And then it's the next episode, they're allowing it to happen again. I was just like, what is happening, guys?
Yeah, I was just like, are they trying to get them to fight? Are they just incompetent? Like what's going on with them?
Who's the crew this season?
I will say this, my biggest disappointment with Thanos was that I at least wanted to like him enough that I could have come on here and did my Thanos from Marvel impression and done all.
You can still do it. It's your video. You do you.
You cannot live with your own failures. Where did that bring you?
Nice.
Back to me. See, I really wanted to do all of my Thanos stuff. I wanted to snap, to make a lot of characters be killed off instantly. But no, you just sucked so much that I was not sad you were gone.
I will say this about Thanos and Thanos' death. I felt that it was really underwhelming. And I think it's because it was done by the other YouTuber where I didn't care about them either. I think I wanted to see something more compelling, like grabbing him and falling off the bridge with him, that kind of a death. Something in the games where it's like, oh, he's trying after the merry-go-round to run to a room and somebody just Spartan kicks him out the door and he can't get in. Something that somebody does to him in a game, that where he's been playing this game, as a bad guy. As anyone who watched Squid Game, the reality show, there was a bad guy on there and he was doing all that same kind of stuff, and then he got taken out, and it was so satisfying in the game. And I feel like for me, I would have enjoyed that a lot more satisfying if it was somebody, maybe even on his own team, that did that to him and he died in the game. Here I was just like, I don't like this YouTuber either, so I'm just not rooting for him. I'm not rooting for Thanos. I'm not rooting for either of you. So underwhelming for me. How do you guys feel? I saw very divided on Twitter. Some people are like, yeah, he's dead. I was like, okay, I get it. Yeah. On the other hand, people also felt underwhelmed by it.
Okay. There was a part of me that was like, yeah, he's dead, woo! But then there was the other part of me that was, especially now that you're bringing it up, I would have liked the death to be a little bit funnier, and I know that's a really dark thing to say, but
This is a dark show.
it's a really dark show, and because
They have a pregnant contestant.
Yes.
So dark.
Yeah, I think that they could have done something a little bit darker and more twisted with him that would have been very entertaining. Because it would have stood out a little bit more in the sea of things. I think the fundamental problem that Squid Game had, at least when it comes to his demise, is I think they got to a certain point where they were like, okay, we don't want to continue the games anymore for the sake of the story, for whatever reason, but we have to get rid of Thanos somehow. And they couldn't really come up with a way to do that that was really, really entertaining.
Well, do they not want to continue with the games? Let's talk about the boy doll for a quick second here, okay? So there was a post-credit mid-roll of this boy doll that we saw with red light, green light with the girl doll. Now there's this boy doll, and I was kind of thinking, okay, how are they going to bring this back? We're on a cliffhanger here.
Yeah.
Everybody still wants to see the games. Are we going to see the final season have no games? Or are they going to have the contestants that are left plus a whole new group of people come in, but they have to change the games? Because my tinfoil hat theory on this boy doll is that now that it's been figured out how to deal with this system with the girl doll, there's going to be a boy doll on the other side to stop that from happening. So that if they're both on each side, if you turn away or cover your mouth, that's not a thing anymore. The boy doll's going to catch you.
Yeah, I think I'll put on the tinfoil hat too and just go ahead and say you're correct, because that is that's exactly what's going on. Like they saw again was able to do in season 2 when it comes to this. And if they are going to have him or any other contestant return to the game somehow, they have to find a way to make sure that it's different. Now, here's my attempt at trying to answer the other part of this that you brought up when it comes to these other contestants, because there's a reasonable amount of people who are still alive, some of which are still in that room. Yeah, including, the mother and son, who are like 2 of the new characters who I was actually pretty invested in, who I really liked. There's a couple of different ways that they can go about this. Actually, I'm going to propose 3 different scenarios for what's going to happen here. Either Gihan's going to go back into the games because they're going to make him, because they basically arrested him at the end of season 2. They're going to kill off everybody else, and then they're just going to make him do it again because they just like making him miserable. Like, that's one possibility.
Okay.
Another possibility.
Let's see if you get to my possibility.
Okay. They bring in just entirely new people. They just send everybody else back into the real world, which it feels like they're not going to do that because it's too many people. Or they're going to give these surviving people a choice where they're going to let some of them go back in, or they're going to let some of them leave. Or I guess they could just do a 4th situation where they just make everybody come back into the games at this point, being like, you all blew it.
No, I think that they're not going to be able to leave with the money, and everybody still is in the position that they need the money. So I think they're going to be like, okay, this particular game is clearly over and we're not able to do this. So we're going to have to play some new games where I think we're going to see red light, green light again with the girl doll and the boy doll. That way they can't mess around and be able to be like, ha ha ha, I got through it this time. We know how it works. That this is the final season. They're going to give us red light, green light. They're just going to make it extremely difficult to get through it. I mean, it's the most important game of the whole game because it's how they eliminate the most amount of people. So I think they're going to be like, sorry for your luck. Nobody's able to get this money. The game obviously went up in flames. So we're going to start again, and we're going to give you guys an option. We're going to put more money in the pot. It's going to be the biggest pot ever if you want to play again. Except, the games are going to be different. And I think that Frontman is going to recruit Gihan to be able to be part of the behind the scenes. I think that Frontman originally played this game. I think he played this game years back after his wife died, and he was really down on his luck. He couldn't handle anything anymore. I think he got recruited to play the game. He played the game, and I think he won the game. And I think that they saw something in him, and then they brought him into management, and now he's running the whole game. And I think that he put himself in the game because he saw the same thing in Song and was like, you know what? I think if I can get in here and I can get to know him better, then I can figure out if I can, one, recruit him if he's ever willing to do something like this. But two, if he is the type of person I actually want to have here with me.
This is a great jumping off point into everything with Frontman and Inho this season, because I think this twist was really, really well done for me. Mostly because obviously I think so many of us knew that he was eventually going to, you know, completely screw over Gian at some point during the game.
Of course.
Like, you know, that part of it was obvious, but they did such a good job, and some of this was performance by Frontman, some of it was the way...
He's amazing.
Yeah, it was the way in which so much of this was structured, where whether it is him talking about his backstory, which, you know, kind of going along with what you're saying, I think there's a lot of that was legitimate. I don't think he was just full on lying.
No, that was felt like 95% truth, and all the best lies have like a lot of truth in them. I think that is exactly what happened, because we saw his brother and mother talking about it, except he lied and said that his wife is still alive, and we know that she's not.
Yeah, I think he just did a really good job of sort of selling himself. Also, even with specific things like his no vote. I went back and forth in my head as like, okay, if he's Frontman, why is he doing this? Why is he trying to end the games? But I think, once again, he's player 001. He was the last person to vote. And I think because of that, he knew what would happen in the event of a tie.
Right.
I think he knew that the tensions were so high that people were going to turn on each other. I mean, maybe he couldn't predict how bad things were going to get, but I think he was well aware of how different strings could end up being pulled. And it leaves a little bit open to interpretation, but I just think he's a very brilliant, interesting character who's not sort of making all of his intentions really clear right away. And the back and forth between him and Song, like, it was really interesting to watch him sort of endear himself to this person as a fellow contestant who could kind of quote unquote understand his plight.
Okay, I don't like to have beef, but yes, I do.
All right,
okay, so here's the thing. He had himself as player 001, and we already know from season 1 who was 001. And it felt like, because Song has already played this game and he already knows what happened to him the first time around with the player with the exact same number, it felt like, you know, this is a 2-year time jump. He's been thinking about this over and over again. For him to get back into the game and see player 001 again, if I was him, and I think he too would have been suspicious right away to be like, okay, 001 is inserting themselves into my circle and trying to become friends with me, trying to become close with me. At one point, he reveals his name and he's like, it means, my name in Korean means 01. I'm like, oh, stop it. Like, why at that point would he have not been like, bruh, there's no way that your name happens to mean 01 and you end up with 001 and you happen to be in this group with me and 001 screwed me over last time. It just felt like at that point, you know, Inho was trying to get him to be like, take a better look at me. Like, really look at me. Like, why aren't you paying attention to everything I'm dropping? I'm giving you all the clues that you can figure this out, and you should figure this out. Why aren't you figuring this out?
The point in which I would have really been like that, because maybe I would give too much of the benefit of the doubt early on. Like, I'll admit that. But the part that I would have really, I don't know, sent a flare up into the sky is when Jung Bae, R.I.P., had this discussion with Gian at one point where he basically tries to get out a little bit of what happened during the Mingle game with Inho, and ultimately doesn't end up finishing the story, but he's clearly trying to tell him that there's something really off about him. But I would have, if I was Gian, I would have pressed more, and I know there was a lot going on, mind you. I would have found time to press a little bit more for information on that, to try to really understand what it is that happened. Because if you're trusting your life in somebody else, and clearly at the end of the season they were, I think you need as much information as possible, because you got to know who to trust. Like, even people who felt like he could trust, ultimately they couldn't quite work it out.
Okay, let's talk about the thing that I have the hardest time believing, and it is this whole like rebellion at the end. I understand why Sung is there, and he is there to do exactly this. He doesn't want to just end the game because they're all going to just get sent home, and then he's going to be stuck again trying to figure out how to get back there. He wants to end the games forever.
Yeah.
Nobody else there is there for that reason. They are all there to get the money, whether it's the X's who are like, we're going to end the game right now so that we can take our money and I can go home and take care of everything. Nobody else has to die. Or the O's that are like, we want to go all the way to the end because we want money and we're okay with more people dying. None of the people in this group are here to be like, let's end the games. So when he's finally having this big speech, it's like, okay, guys, everybody, let's end the games. I don't know why anybody agreed to go do this, because all the people that are there still need that money. And by going up and ending the games and risking your life to end the games, you're not ending up with the money. You could just vote to end the game and go home with the money. There's no reason for anybody to have followed him to do this.
Okay, here's where I lie on this, because I understand some of where you're coming from.
I didn't get it. I wouldn't have believed it.
I feel like it's a couple of different things. I think one of them is probably the real legitimate fear that if you stay here and continue to try to continue this game, one or two things are going to happen.
They had the votes. The X's had the votes. Well, it was going to end.
Well, it seems that way, but it's hard to know when you actually get up there to vote. And then there's the other fear. It's like, okay, even if we do this, are they actually really going to let us out? I know it's in the clause. I know there's all these different components to it, but I think there's a little bit of that fear. I think
but they also know that Sung won and left.
Yeah.
So they know that they will let people go who win. So it's in the clause. They have somebody there who's confirmed that this game can end and end with the money. And you do get to be like to go home. So if all that stuff is confirmed, then it feels like there's more of a trust to be like, okay, we have the numbers. We'll just end the game. We'll all go home with whatever, and that's fine. Instead, it's like, no, you guys should all go get yourselves killed so that we can make sure that nobody ever has these games again and you won't get any money.
Well, okay, see,
cool. Sounds great.
Someone did finish the games the first time, but it's like you made it to the end. And so it's sort of, to me, I'm not saying I would be fully afraid of this, but I'd be a little bit afraid. It's like, okay, are they going to let us in before the quote unquote desired end? Like, are the rich people really getting their money's worth? Like, I'd be a little bit afraid about that. But I think the one thing that...
But they don't know that there are rich people watching them.
So the thing that Sung lucks out on, and I think this to me is the real reason why I'm able to buy, as difficult as it is that this happened, is they specifically wrote in a lot of people on this show with, I think, military background. Especially,
they did.
I mean, we saw it throughout season 2. We had multiple people, with Jung Bae, of course, being one of them. Yep. I think they intentionally threw these people in there so that they could kind of get themselves attached to this idea of a mission, that this is a mission that they needed to have resolved, and that these people could go in fight. I think that, to me, is the reason why I was able to buy into it. I get where you're coming from, though. If these characters didn't have this particular background, I would probably have a harder time with it.
I understand the background, and that is exactly why that they were written in, but they still are in the financial situation that they are in, and they are still going to have to go back to the real world then without the money, that they have done what they had to do, maybe, or they ended up dead for it. It just felt like the mission wasn't worth the reward for anybody there. They were all there knowing at this point that they were going to die for this money. And now they're just like, okay, let's just kill everybody at the games. It's just like, well, you're still in the same spot, which is you need this money to be able to have a life outside of where you are right now. And by killing everybody, it doesn't necessarily mean that you get to bring that down. Then you bring that big piggy bank down, what happens? All the O's might come and kill you. Like, you just don't know. Have the vote, get your money, get out.
Here's the other, I think the fault here lies in some ways with Gi-hun, because I understand where he's coming from and what his driving force is for all of this.
For sure.
But I think he's also so blinded by the trauma of what he went through the first time that I think when he gets into his big platoon-esque plan in the finale, he's just thinking, okay, this is the way to save everybody. But I think at the same time, subconsciously, he's doing it because he just wants vengeance for himself. That it's just like, I want these people to pay for what they did to me. Not sort of thinking about the ramifications here, where it's kind of, if he went along with sort of what you're saying, there's a bigger chance that more people could probably get out alive if they have the votes. But I think he's just so single-minded about what his motivation is at this point that he's kind of just canceling out this possibility of, oh, I might win. Maybe I'll survive. How many people are going to survive with me? Maybe I'll get a couple of people out of here, when in reality there was a way to probably save more of them.
By voting. That's the thing that I also had a bit of a problem with. He was really like, I want to get everybody out. Okay, well, just us. We're just going to hide under these beds. We got to sacrifice a few of the exes overnight. What are you going to do? I'm like, what? This doesn't make any sense for this character. This character isn't going to sacrifice the few to get to, the many. He wants to save as many people as he can. There were other options, I feel, like staying up all night and making sure everybody is safe and finding another way to make this happen, like having the vote. There were so many other ways, and it felt like it was out of his character to be like, okay, just us, we're just going to be safe. Other people that are on the X's on our team, sorry for your luck. You're going to have to be sacrificed so that I can get what I want. And that's the thing about it. I think he is exactly like you said. He is so blinded by ending the games that he is not considering what anybody else wants. There's a whole group of O's that know what this game is at this point, are willing to die themselves, other people, to get to this money. And that is their choice. And I think that that's why the recruiter and that whole bizarre scene with the, do you want a lottery ticket or do you want the bread? And so many of the people took the lottery ticket, and they took all the bread and was like, guys, you guys made your choice. You could have taken the sure thing. You took the gamble. You lost the gamble. And now he's stomping all over the bread. And that's what's happening here too. It's like, okay, we're going to take the gamble. We know what the results are. The results are death. We're willing to continue on. The O's are willing to continue on. The X's are not willing to continue on, but they are willing to take the money and go. Neither one of these choices is what Song wants.
This is my real big question. And, maybe this is for you. Maybe this is for everybody out there. Maybe it's for the entire Squid Game team. Would the Gi-hun that first started this round of the Squid Games, at the start of Red Light, Green Light, would he have handled this ending situation the same way back then? I feel like he has a real mental decline throughout this season, where he kind of, his health just sort of spirals and spirals to where he gets too invested in his own anger, and that's sort of what causes some of this. But I could be really wrong with that, and maybe this is just out of character. And I think it's a really interesting debate with that character, because none of us have partaken in the actual Squid Games, not the reality show Squid Game, but the actual Squid Game, and what that does to you. Now, okay. Here is my biggest beef with this season, is just that we have this character, Noelle, who we meet pretty early on in the first couple of episodes, who becomes number 11's employee, I guess you can say, within the game.
She goes from the pink bunny suit to the pink killer suit.
I was so invested in her early on. And she ends up doing some really horrible things. But I was really invested in the bunny suit story and all of that. I thought she was really, really interesting. And then I just think she gets totally lost. And she just doesn't have, I think, the impact that I was expecting from the first part of this season. We had this really, really great character, and then it's just kind of like,
Yeah, I mean, I was invested in that story, the bunny story, the girl with the lollipop, and then to get to that reveal that it's like, oh, she's not being trucked off to play the game. She's being trucked off to be one of the pink suits. I was like, oh, what a great reveal. That could have been the end of the story for me right there. Instead, we have this more story where it's like, oh, we're taking these organs. Oh, you can't do that. I'm going to make sure people are dead. And there was a moment that I was kind of like, maybe Frontman knows that this organ thing is happening because of what happened to his wife, that he's like, you know what? We're going to take, these people who lose, and we're going to take their organs and make sure that other people don't die because, my wife died, and we're going to full circle it in some kind of horrible, diabolical way. But he doesn't know that this is going on. I was really surprised that was the deal when the manager was like, oh yeah, I just know, okay, take care of 11. She can't be messing around with what we're doing. We're making this money on the side.
Yeah, it just felt like there wasn't enough connective tissue at that point, where if you're going to bring up number 11 and focus on her after she
Right.
enters the game, I think you need to do a little bit more there. And maybe they will. I mean, the reality is it seems like the final season of Squid Game is not going to be that long. It's, I've heard maybe 6 episodes. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of time to bring in a ton of new characters. I think, we went over this. I think they're going to have to kind of keep us focused on a lot of the people we've already met in some shape or form.
Yeah, I don't think they're just going to let everybody go. I think they've gotten us invested so that we are invested in them for however long until this comes back, waiting to find out what happens to the characters that we have grown to love. I think it's just, I wish there were more stories this season of characters for me to get really invested in, like the first season. They did such a good job bringing me in, taking them away, bringing me in, taking them away. It was such a journey. That first season was such a special spark of a show. This season had too much of the same thing that was going on. Even Red Light, Green Light, I knew they were going to bring it back. I was like, okay, cool. How are they going to make it a little bit different? Because I was thinking, like, the rich people are not going to want to just watch the same games over and over again. They already paid this kind of money betting on people or whatever they're doing to watch the games, that they'd be like, okay, well, if we're going to bring you back to be able to watch the next games can't be the same, right? So when they brought them into the exact same game, I was like, okay, I've seen that.
It's the fundamental problem with bringing a show like this back at all. It's really, really hard. And I've seen a lot of critiques ranging from, oh, it's too boring. I've seen people say it's downright terrible, which I do not agree with at all.
No, it's not terrible at all. I think that the boy doll should have just been brought in at the beginning so that when Song is trying to like figure it out, when he walks out, he's like, okay, guys, I got this game. And then he turns around to stand in front of everybody to be like, I got it, and looks up and there's the boy doll. And he's like, oh no, I don't have it after all. That would have been chilling.
It would have been chilling and it would have been entertaining. I do not think that this season is perfect by any means. I think season 1 is leagues better than it, but I think season 1 is also leagues better than almost every other show on the planet. So I think this is a very entertaining season that I think years down the road, there will be a sudden rise of defenders of it, because I think it's so easy to just like hate on something that hasn't been on in the air in a while. People say it was gone for too long. It probably was. I will agree with some of that. Were some issues. I will say I did enjoy the Mingle game. I also enjoyed the other game that was before that. I do not know what to call that. The let's all wander around the
5 games. I don't know.
I don't know, but just like the music for that sequence was so weird. The way it was shot was so weird. It was all so twisted. That to me felt the most like Squid Game out of anything we saw this season.
Now, I understand why the cop, Jun-ho, was not in the games, because obviously In-ho had put himself into the games, and obviously if his brother was there, it was going to be a conflict. But man, did I ever want to see the cop in the games. When they got together at the beginning, I was just like, okay, they're going to be working together. How crazy would that be to have his brother in the game like that?
It would have been, I'm all for more pre-existing relationships in Squid Game. This is the biggest thing that I have learned from this season and even from the reality show, that you make people who care about each other on some level. It adds another emotional weight. And so once again, we're not having to see the same thing over and over again. But that's where we are with Squid Game season 2. It sounds like there's going to be a lot smaller of a wait leading into season 3. Thankfully, it's already been shot. So hopefully we'll be able to discuss that soon. Hit that subscribe button though, because like Jess said, we're covering Dexter Original Sin. We have Severance coming up. We really appreciate your support, and you can support us further by joining our Patreon. Our link is in the description below for that. We have covered Dune Prophecy exclusively in video form there, and coming up, we've got some exciting stuff there, including The Pit on Max and Prime Target on Apple TV+. Thank you to our patrons. We'll see you here next time.